The last person anyone expected to be connected to Caleb Anderson's downfall was the woman who once said she loved him more than anything. Caleb was the only son of Linda Anderson. For years, Linda believed her son was the one thing in life she could always count on. She raised him through difficult moments, protected him, and watched him become the kind of man she hoped he would be. She never imagined that one day, her son's name would become connected to a story that would break her heart. A story that would make strangers judge him. A story that would leave his best friend searching for answers. And a story that would begin with the person closest to him. Rachel Morgan. Before everything changed, Rachel was not Caleb's enemy. She was the woman who knew his dreams. The woman who shared his happiest moments. The woman who had been welcomed into the Anderson family. People believed they knew their story. They believed they knew how it would end. But they were wrong. Because one decision would change everything. One conversation, one breakup, and one moment that would leave an entire family asking the same question. How did two people who once loved each other reach a point where everything fell apart? The day Caleb's life changed, people heard only one side of the story. They heard an accusation. They saw a reaction. And they made a judgment. But what they did not know was what happened before that moment. What happened between Caleb and Rachel behind closed doors. What caused a relationship that once looked unbreakable to suddenly collapse? And why, after everything happened, Caleb's best friend Jason Miller refused to accept the story everyone else believed. Jason knew Caleb. He knew the person behind the rumors. He knew the friend who would never deserve to be remembered the wrong way. So he started searching for answers. And what he discovered would force everyone to question what they thought they knew. Before we continue deeper into this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because the truth about Caleb Anderson was hidden in the moments nobody paid attention to. And once those moments were uncovered, nothing about this story would look the same again. Caleb Anderson had everything he valued. A mother who loved him deeply. A best friend who stood beside him through every difficult moment. And a relationship he once believed would become the future he dreamed about. For years, Caleb thought he knew exactly where his life was heading. He believed the people closest to him would always be the people protecting him. He believed love meant loyalty, and that the people who knew his heart would never turn against him. But after years together, Caleb made a decision that would change everything. He decided to walk away from Rachel Morgan. It was not a decision he made easily. It was not because the memories disappeared. It was not because he suddenly stopped caring. Caleb believed the relationship had reached a point where staying together was causing more pain than happiness. He believed ending things was the right choice, even if it hurt both of them. He thought time would heal the pain. He thought both of them would eventually move forward. Instead, that decision became the beginning of a chain of events nobody could have imagined. Because shortly after the breakup, something happened that left everyone searching for answers. A story was told. An accusation was made. And Caleb's life changed forever. But the biggest question was not only what happened that day. The biggest question was why. Why would Rachel Morgan, the woman who once knew Caleb better than anyone, become connected to the moment that changed his entire family? Was the accusation the truth? Was there something Caleb had been hiding? Or was there another side of the story that nobody had discovered yet? And as people tried to understand what really happened, one person refused to accept the story everyone else believed. Caleb's best friend, Jason Miller. Jason knew Caleb before the rumors. He knew the person behind the accusations. He knew the friend who had always been there for others. So why was Jason willing to risk everything to uncover the truth? What did he discover that made him believe Caleb's story was not over? And what really happened between Caleb and Rachel before the day everything changed? Before the accusations. Before the questions. Before his name became connected to a story that would change everything. Caleb Anderson was simply a son who loved his mother. To many people, Caleb was just another young man trying to build his future. But to Linda Anderson, he was much more than that. He was the reason she kept pushing forward through every difficult season of her life. After facing challenges most people never saw, Linda raised Caleb with one goal in mind: to make sure her son had a chance at a better life than the one she experienced. She worked hard. She sacrificed quietly. She put her own dreams aside because she believed Caleb's future was worth everything. And Caleb never forgot what his mother did for him. He knew every opportunity he had came from the sacrifices Linda made behind the scenes. He would often remind people that his mother was the reason he became the person he was. The lessons she taught him shaped his character. The struggles they faced together made their bond stronger. And even as Caleb grew older, he never stopped being the son who checked on his mother, supported her, and wanted to make her proud. But Caleb was not only known because of his relationship with Linda. He was also known because of the people who surrounded him. And one person who knew Caleb better than almost anyone was his best friend, Jason Miller. Jason and Caleb were not just friends. They were like brothers. They had shared years of memories together. They had laughed together. They had faced difficult moments together. Jason knew Caleb's personality. He knew his strengths. He knew his flaws. But most importantly, he knew the kind of person Caleb was when nobody else was watching. That was why when the world began to see Caleb differently, Jason struggled to accept it. When people believed the accusations, Jason remembered the friend he knew. When people judged Caleb, Jason remembered the person who had always been there for him. Because Jason believed there was a part of the story nobody had heard yet. A missing piece. A hidden truth. And he was determined to find it. Because for Jason, this was not just about proving something to other people. It was about protecting the name of someone who could no longer speak for himself. For years, Caleb Anderson and Rachel Morgan believed they had something special. They shared memories. They shared dreams. They believed their relationship would last. But slowly, things began to change. The conversations became arguments. The trust between them started fading. And the relationship that once brought them happiness became something neither of them fully understood anymore. Caleb still cared about Rachel, but he felt they were no longer bringing out the best in each other. After many difficult conversations, Caleb made a painful decision. He decided to end the relationship. He believed walking away was better than continuing something that was no longer working. During their final conversation, Caleb tried to explain his feelings. "I think we need to go our separate ways," he said. But Rachel saw those words differently. To Caleb, it was a difficult goodbye. To Rachel, it felt like betrayal. She could not understand how someone who once promised a future together could suddenly choose to leave. Caleb believed the relationship was over. He believed time would allow both of them to heal and move on. But Rachel was not ready to let go. And what happened next would turn a painful breakup into something much bigger. Because days later, Rachel would make a decision that would change Caleb's life, his mother Linda's world, and everyone who loved him forever. On that day, Caleb Anderson went to the marketplace like any other normal day. He had no idea that before he left that place, his name would become connected to a moment that would change everything. He was not expecting trouble. He was not expecting to see Rachel Morgan. And he definitely was not expecting what happened next. Rachel appeared. Then suddenly, an accusation was made. She claimed Caleb had taken her phone. She told the people around them that he was responsible. And within moments, the situation changed. A crowd began gathering. People started asking questions. But before anyone searched for the truth, many had already made their decision. Caleb was confused. He could not understand how things had changed so quickly. He tried to explain himself. He insisted he had done nothing wrong. He asked people to listen to his side. But the louder Caleb tried to defend himself, the more difficult it became for his voice to be heard. The crowd saw an accusation. They saw emotions. They saw a situation they did not fully understand. And in those moments, the truth became harder to find. Caleb's life was being judged by people who never knew him. People who never met his mother. People who never saw the person Linda Anderson raised. But somewhere away from that marketplace, Linda was living a normal day. She had no idea her son's life had suddenly changed. She had no idea a moment was unfolding that would bring the worst news of her life. Because when the phone call finally reached her, nothing would ever be the same again. When the news finally reached Linda Anderson, the world she knew came crashing down. The son she spent years protecting was gone. The child she sacrificed everything for. The person she believed would one day stand beside her through life's hardest moments. For Linda, Caleb Anderson was not just her son. He was her entire world. She had spent years carrying the weight of raising him, believing every struggle would be worth it because Caleb's future would make all the sacrifices meaningful. But now, she was forced to face a reality she never imagined. The grief was too heavy. The pain of losing her only son became something she could not overcome. A family that once had dreams for the future was suddenly left with questions, heartbreak, and unanswered pain. But while many people accepted the story they heard, Jason Miller could not. He could not accept that the person he called his best friend would be remembered by the world as someone he believed Caleb was not. Jason knew Caleb. He knew the man behind the accusations. He knew the friend who cared about his family, respected his mother, and always tried to do the right thing. And something about the story did not feel right. Jason believed there was another side, a part of the truth that nobody had discovered yet. So he made a promise. He promised himself that he would find out what really happened, not because it would bring Caleb back, but because Caleb deserved to have his name cleared. And as Jason began searching for answers, he would uncover details that would change the way everyone looked at Rachel Morgan and the events that led to that day. Jason Miller knew that finding the truth would not be easy. The person standing at the center of everything was Rachel Morgan, the same woman who once shared a future with Caleb Anderson, the same person who knew his family, the same person who was now connected to the moment that changed everything. Jason knew he needed answers. He needed to understand what happened before the marketplace. He needed to know if the accusation was really about a phone, or if there was something much deeper behind it. So Jason started looking closer. He went back through the details everyone ignored, the conversations, the moments after the breakup, the things Rachel had said, the pieces of the story that did not seem to fit together. And slowly, Jason began discovering that the marketplace incident was not as simple as people first believed. The accusation was not only about a missing phone. It was connected to the pain Rachel felt after Caleb ended their relationship. To Rachel, Caleb walking away was not just a breakup. She believed he had rejected everything they had built together. She believed he had left her behind. And somewhere inside that pain, anger began replacing the love they once shared. Jason uncovered the truth that the breakup had affected Rachel more deeply than anyone realized. She wanted Caleb to understand her pain. She wanted him to feel the hurt she believed she had experienced. But she never imagined how far the situation would go. She never imagined the consequences would affect Linda Anderson. She never imagined an entire family would be left broken. After everything Jason Miller uncovered, the truth about Caleb Anderson's story finally began to come out. The accusations that surrounded Caleb for so long started to fall apart. The questions that had haunted his family finally had answers. Jason was able to show that there was more to the story than what people believed at the beginning. Caleb's name was finally seen differently, but the truth came after the damage was already done. Because no explanation could bring Caleb Anderson back. No apology could undo the pain Linda Anderson experienced. No discovery could erase the emptiness left behind. A mother had lost the only son she spent her entire life protecting. A family had been broken, and a young man's future had been taken away before he had the chance to live it. For Jason Miller, finding the truth was important. But it was also painful, because justice was not only about proving what happened. It was about accepting that some losses cannot be repaired. Sometimes a single decision made in a moment of anger can create consequences that last forever. Sometimes people realize the damage they caused only after it is too late to change anything. And sometimes the truth finally arrives, only after everything that mattered has already been lost. The story of Caleb Anderson leaves one question behind. If things had been handled differently, could this tragedy have been prevented? Do you think Rachel Morgan deserved forgiveness after everything that happened? Or was what happened something that could never be undone? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to hear more emotional stories about betrayal, secrets, and shocking truths, make sure to subscribe so you never miss our next story. And she never imagined that the one person who refused to stop searching for answers would be Caleb's best friend. Because Jason was no longer just trying to understand what happened. He was trying to make sure Caleb's name would not be remembered for something he believed Caleb never did.